What a beautiful race we've just witnessed at Monza, home of the ever-ferocious Tifosi. Max Verstappen set the record for the most consecutive wins by a driver, but it was the Ferraris that were the talk of the town. Carlos Sainz, who started the race on pole position, and teammate Charles Leclerc gave the Tifosi a mini heart attack in the last moments of the race when they got into a heated battle with each other. Pretty dangerous to do, considering the Nico Roseburg curse cast upon them on Sunday. That, and Fernando Alonso dissing the Scuderia for not living up to expectations in today's video. So stay tuned. Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur has stood by his choice to let Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz engage in an intense battle for the last podium spot at Monza. In the Italian Grand Prix, Carlos Sainz, who had started from pole position, ultimately secured the final podium position after being overtaken by both Red Bull cars during the race. To add to his woes, Sainz found himself having to hold off the determined efforts of his fellow Ferrari teammate Charles Leclerc in the final laps. Leclerc pulled out all the stops in his bid to overtake the Spaniard. At a certain moment, Leclerc did succeed in overtaking Sainz as they entered turn 1, but he slightly overshot the braking point, which enabled Sainz to position himself for a thrilling head-to-head battle into the Della Roggia chicane. Both drivers ran slightly wide during this intense exchange, with Sainz ultimately regaining the position. It turned into a neck-and-neck drag race, one that Sainz managed to win. The Spaniard held his ground and secured the third-place finish by a mere 0.2 of a second as their cars crossed the finish line closely, with Leclerc making a last-ditch effort on the final lap that saw him locking up into turn 1. As the two cars came dangerously close during their intense battle, it naturally raised the question of why Ferrari was willing to take such a risk by allowing their drivers to engage in such a fierce competition, potentially jeopardizing a strong points haul and a podium finish at their home race. When questioned about why there wasn't a call to halt the race, Fred Vasseur addressed the media, saying, "Because if I froze the position, you would have exactly the same question. Why did you freeze the situation?" It's much easier to comment when you have a happy end, but I think it was also the best way to thank everybody and the support of the Tifosi. I was not very comfortable to freeze something 5 laps before the end. I trust them, but I told them no risk at all. It's always relative, and I think that the notion of no risk is relative, but it's an opinion, and I'm quite proud of the decision and of the job done by the drivers today. Regarding whether the decision to let the battle persist was made by the strategists or came directly from Vasseur, the Frenchman confirmed that he personally made the ultimate call to allow the competition to carry on. On this, I want to have the last call. I told them, no risk. You can race, but no risk. Again, it's relative, but I was much more comfortable with the situation than to freeze something. When it was pointed out to him that the drivers seemed to have a different interpretation of where the boundary of acceptable risk lay, Vasseur responded with a smile, saying, "I don't want to have a polemic on this. If I froze the situation, I would have had exactly the same question. Why did you freeze? It's not the spirit of the race," and so on. So you can always say that it was a bit too much or not, but in the end, the drivers finished the race and are more than happy with the outcome of this. Charles Leclerc believes that his thrilling duel with Carlos Sainz in the closing laps of the 2023 Italian Grand Prix embodies the essence of racing and should be the standard for every race. Even though he didn't come out on top in the end, Leclerc expressed his enjoyment of the intense battle, likening it to his karting days, and he voiced his belief that racing should maintain this level of excitement consistently. He shared his thoughts with Sky Sports, saying, "I personally really enjoyed it. This is what racing should be all the time, in my opinion. This reminds me of the karting days where we were all on the limit. We could follow each other. With the DRS, we would actually stay very close to each other. With Carlos, it was really on the limit." Leclerc recognised that both he and Sainz might have been a bit aggressive with their manoeuvres, but he emphasised that there were no ill feelings between them. But he had a suspicion that Ferrari team boss Fred Vasseur might not have found watching the battle as enjoyable. It was close many times. There were so many moments where it was very tricky. We were both moving a bit too much under braking, but at the end, I don't complain. This is what I love about racing, the adrenaline that you feel when you're fighting each other. This was really fun. It was on the limit from Carlos on the defending side. It was on the limit also my side, on the attack side. It means so much to both of us to be on the podium here in Monza, so we gave it all. I've always said this is how I love racing. I loved today. We will sit down with Fred. I'm sure he needs a bit of a rest for now because his heart rate was high in those last few laps. In a light-hearted manner, Vasseur said that he wasn't eager to review any instant replays of the action immediately after the race. He mentioned that the drivers would have a conversation to go over their moves, but in spite of that, he showed pride in the team's decision not to interfere during the battle. It's a bit of a strange feeling, but I'm a big fan of let them race. I told them the notion of no risk. It's always relative, but I really appreciated the last couple of laps. We'll have the discussion after the race, but tonight, tomorrow, they're in the factory. I didn't freeze the position. I don't want to see the replay tonight. Fernando Alonso believes that Ferrari should not find themselves trailing behind Aston Martin in the Constructors' Championship, considering the competitiveness of their car. Currently, Ferrari is 14 points behind Aston Martin, with 9 rounds still to go. However, Alonso, who has secured all 7 of his team's podium finishes this year, asserts that his former team should be in a position to lead comfortably. He shared these thoughts with the media following yesterday's qualifying session at Monza. Ferrari, they've been very strong this year, and they're still behind us in the Constructors' Championship, and it is difficult to explain the reason why. They've been in the first row of the grid in Bahrain, first row of the grid in Saudi, pole position in Baku. They have an incredible car, pole position here, and they are still behind. Our strength has always been to score points. In the good weekends, in the bad weekends, it seems that this is a bad weekend, so let's keep our focus to score points every Sunday. So, who's to blame for Ferrari falling short of expectations? Maybe Nico Roseburg has something to do with it. Setting aside the so-called Monza curse, which Max Verstappen overcame with his greatness, Ferrari found themselves affected by what some might dub the Nico Roseburg curse, following their loss to the Dutchman on their home turf. Before the race, Roseburg took to social media to show his support for the Scuderia on their home turf. He posted a selfie on Instagram that appeared to express his desire for Ferrari to come out victorious. The 2016 world champion further solidified his allegiance to Ferrari in the lead-up to the race by making the following declaration: "I want to see Ferrari win today. The atmosphere will be incredible." The Tifosi were not pleased with Roseburg, claiming that his support effectively cursed the team, which may be true, considering how Sainz lost pole to Verstappen. After the race, Nico Roseburg raised doubts about the statement made by Charles Leclerc following his intense late-race tussle with his Ferrari teammate at the Italian Grand Prix. After sharing similar remarks with Sky Sports F1 immediately after the race ended, Roseburg raised doubts about the sincerity of those statements made by the Monegasque driver. He said, "There's something a bit strange. I mean, I had such a lovely fight and what a great day, and I'm going to have a beer with Carlos, we're going to have a laugh. I'm not sure about that. Because, I mean, seriously, Carlos on one of those occasions was over the limit. He locked up on the inside, he went off the track and took Charles with him, and as teammates, that's the one where that's a bit over the edge, and so I'm not sure what's going on there." So, in your opinion, was the battle between the two Ferrari drivers just them engaging in friendly competition, or is there something more sinister in the works between the two? Tell us what you think in the comment section down below. And, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Thanks for watching.